Use this block to put our hand on, or to put our forearm on. And we're going to start off with a wrist-controlled articular rotation. So that means we're going to fully extend it. And you're going to keep that forearm in the same position. And then I'm going to roll and roll. So I'm going to use the bottom half. Good. And then the thing is, I don't want to roll my forearm, so I really want to use my wrist. Good. Now we're going to go up all the way. We're going to go down. So roll it up and down. Click. My wrist clicks when I do this. It's harder than it looks, huh?
Yeah.
Good. So, yeah, this is the wrist car. So we have, in our wrist, we have dorsal flexion, as we call that. We go all the way back, and we have palmar flexion. We also have ulnar deviation, so that's pinky side deviation. And we have radial side deviation, where we move towards the thumb. So let's see if we can just explore how far our wrist goes that way and that way. Yes, so the moment your elbow moves, that's where your wrist stops, right? Okay, now move your palm up. Now we're going to go to pinky side deviation as well. And we're going to go to radial deviation. So the deviation towards the thumb is not that big. So it's about this. That's the normal, because that's the shape of the wrist joint. But the ulnar deviation is a little bigger if we're flexed. And you should start to feel that really around here when you do that. Okay, now let's extend. And now we all of a sudden notice that we have more radial deviation compared to ulnar deviation. Those are hard motions, huh? So we're going to keep it extended, and then we're going to go that way, and that way, that way, and that way. Good. Okay, now make a full circle again. And then we can emphasize in the circle, we can emphasize the deviation. So either we exacerbate the deviation towards the thumb or the pinky. That's what we're going to accentuate. Or we can start to accentuate really the dorsal flexion and the palmar flexion. So we really want to get to the max range of doing that. You'll start to feel that this is pretty tiring for your forearms, huh? All right, so we're going to do a few more options with this. So instead of having a full fist or our fingers fully extended, let's see if we can do it like this. Good, same thing. And keep those fingers really locked in that same spot. And you're going to feel that this is a different contraction than when we had our fingers fully extended. Okay, now make a fist. Really grip it. Same thing. Okay, good. Now just to try it out, let's flip our hand over. We'll do the same thing. So keep your elbows still, man. Yeah, so just move that wrist. Okay, switch sides. So just going to start with dorsal flexion and palmar flexion. I just came here to stretch. Yeah, so let's just start with that. Palmar flexion, dorsal flexion. Then once you have done that a couple times.
Where should I place the block? Just on my wrist?
Yeah, so I have it about here.
Okay.
This is where I have the block. And the reason for this is that helps me to not rotate my forearm. If you would have been a millennial, I would have said like, hey, put your phone on here and don't let it fall, and that works. Okay, now let's go for the deviation. So we go ulnar deviation, so pinky side, and radial deviation. Let's just explore how far that goes. Okay, now do a few circles. Okay, turn the other way as well. Now after this, your forearms are going to feel like nice and smooth and strong. And if you do this, see if you can keep your fingers in the same position all throughout. So not bending, extending as you go, but keeping them fully extended as you go. This will make the motion of your wrist more specific. Okay, so shake it off. It's hard, huh? Okay. So now we're going to do a few where we're going to accentuate the deviation. So accentuate either going to the ulnar side or to the radial side. Okay, turn the other way. Okay, now we're going to emphasize the dorsal flexion and palmar flexion. Can go that way.
When you're doing it that way, is there some point at which the bones lock up? Because mine always feels very tight. It feels as though it's got to a point where.
Yeah, so that can definitely feel then like that. That's also something I want to work on a little later in this class. But it can definitely feel like that. It's just jamming here. But that is a sign that your wrist could use a little bit extra mobility, because it shouldn't feel like that. Of course, you have about 90 degrees and that's where it ends. But it should feel like it's just that's where it ends. It shouldn't feel like it's jamming somewhere. Okay? Gonna have our fingers like that. We're almost done with this one. Okay, turn the other way as well. Okay, and then make a fist. And you probably notice that doing it with a fist or with your fingers extended or fingers slightly bent will just give it slightly different muscles that it contracts. Okay, flip your hand over. Do the same thing. Click, 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 click. Okay. So, shake that off. And just for you to remember, how does it feel like now when you move your wrists? Yeah? And after the exercise we're going to do now, we're going to retest it again and see what the difference is. Okay. So this is like a wrist flow that you can do. We're going to start, so we're going to do a few different exercises back to back, and we're going to do 2 or 3 rounds. So our hands are like this, your fingers are spread, and you're pushing the fingers slightly into the floor. I'm going to bring my weight or my shoulders over my hands, and I'm going to make circles. I'm going to try to keep, if it's too painful, yeah. If it's too painful, you can ease off, but we want to keep as much of the hand on the floor as we do this exercise. If it's really too much, you can even spread your hands out a little bit more. That will make it a little bit easier. And if you're really good, You can put them all the way together. Yeah, and the important thing here is that you don't compress it too much if it's sore. So I can have if I keep the majority of the weight on my knees, or if I keep my hands and knees a little closer together, it will be less pressure on the wrist or on the joint. And if I feel then confident, I've done this a couple times, then I can put some more pressure on there. I remember the first time then doing this, it was super sore. Like, how is this good? But afterwards it felt pretty nice. All right. Let's put our hands like this. And I'm going to start with my shoulders over my wrists. And then I'm going to just move my weight back and stretch those front side of the forearms. Yeah, you should feel this really on the front side of your wrists, your forearms. If you feel it on the back side of your wrists, like here, then ease off a little bit, because that means you're compressing the joint. Okay, and after a couple reps, it should start to feel like it's getting a little easier. Okay, so now we're going to scoot the knees back a little bit. I'm going to see if we can alternate by pulling that off. Just make sure you have enough space to put your elbows. And at some point, you're going to almost get your elbow on the floor or touching the floor, but that's not the goal for now. You're probably going to feel this more in your fingers. Good. Okay. So now, shake it off a little bit. We're going to put our fists on the floor. And also here, you can play around with the amount of effort you put into it. And we're going to roll our wrists forward and backwards. Forwards and backwards. And the thing we're trying to do is really move our wrist. Yeah, so you're going to roll towards your pinky side. So see if you can get that pinky side there. Yeah, there you go. And then you roll up all the way to the end. There you go. And we want to get the majority of the motion from the wrist. So that's where it all starts. And the elbows follow. Good. That's it. Okay, last one. So we're going to put our hands like this. And also here, ease off with the weight you put on. And then from here, going to go. So like that, and then we're going to go. Yeah. Let's see if you can keep your elbows almost locked. That's really going to stretch the back side of your wrist. Okay, good. That was round one. Yeah, so the more you do this, the more you'll be able to adjust and to play around with the intensity. So, let's do it again. So we're going to go to that first exercise. And it should already feel like there is some more space in there. We've mobilized it a little bit. It's possible that the joint will start to get a little warm. Okay, turn the other way as well. And you'll start to notice that you'll be able to make a little bigger circles with your shoulders over your wrists. Or perhaps even get your hands a little closer, but don't push it. Okay. Let's put our hands like that. lean back. Lean back. So also here, keep the elbows extended. We're just leaning back. If you need, you can adjust your position. So if you slide your knees back a little bit, you'll get a little bit more backwards motion. If you want to make this a little bit more active, then see if you can push your fingers into the floor while you do this. You don't have to super hard to push them in, but just slightly, and you'll feel that that will ramp up the intensity of this exercise quite a bit. Okay. So now, alternate that way, that way, that way, that way. Good. Good. Okay. Now, if you want, you can shake it off a little bit. Find your wrists, and we're going to roll those wrists forwards and backwards. And also here, if you're feeling stronger, or you've got like, oh, I think I have this a little better, just put a little bit more force on it. So put a little bit more weight. Good. Okay. Then we're going to put our hands like this, or like this, and then we're going to go forwards. See if you can keep your elbows as good as extended. And at some point, if you do this long enough, you can do push-ups like this, but I'm not there yet. But it should feel like all those tendons and structures here on the back side of the hand, that's where they start to. Okay. You guys okay with this? You're ready for the third round? Okay, so in this third round, see if you can not just put a little bit extra weight on it, but also push your fingers and push your wrists into the floor. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to push those fingers, and as I move throughout, I want to make that motion a little bit more active. So I want to see the tips of your fingers turn a little white. That you're putting a bit of pressure on it. Okay, turn the other way. Good, get a little bigger if you can. Okay, good. Number 2. So you're going to be here. Put your knees a little bit further back and see if you can really sit back. Push those fingers into the floor a little bit. And especially when you go from that backwards position to the front position, you definitely want to push your fingers into the floor. So that's really going to make this exercise a lot more effective. Kind of make it a little bit more sore, but it should feel like it's sore in your muscles, and muscle and soreness is good. All right. So, here. And there's not a specific amount of reps that you should or should not do, then do this. The way I do it is go like, all right, so I think that motion has had a bit enough, and then I move on to the next one. So if you start to feel like, oh man, that's too much, or it's getting to its end, then that's where you stop. Okay, that's about here for me. Make a fist. I'm going to put a little bit more pressure into it, and I'm going to actively roll my wrist back and forth. So really using the muscles in my wrist and that make this motion. So this is that same ulnar and radial deviation we did in the beginning, right? With that block. Okay. Put your hands like this. Okay. And now we press in. So when you go up, see if you can really push those fingers into the floor so you really use those muscles to make that happen. Yeah. There you go. So we're going to make a very active contraction. Whoop. You could even visualize that you're trying to stretch the mat in between your hands, that you're almost pulling that apart. There you go. That should start to feel a lot more free as you do that. Okay. Shake that off. Let's see what else I wrote down. Oh, yeah. So, grab your block. Just going to put one hand on it. I'm going to see if we can find the end range of your wrist. So, the end range of your wrist is how far does my wrist go forward without it feeling like a jam or like a pinch. So for me, that's about here. Your fingers are off the block, and from here, you can extend your fingers. It's like, why is that so hard? Good. And really trying to extend your fingers. Good. Now see if you can keep your elbow extended. Yeah, there you go. So apart from just being able to get into that end range, we also want muscles to be able to contract towards this end range. And your finger extensors, they run all the way up to here, and they are partially responsible for your ability to make these motions. Okay, so bring them all the way up. Hold it here. Now see if you can try to push them back a little bit. Relax. Let's do that four more times. So bring it all the way up. If you want, you can even help them with your hands. So pull them up. Hold. Good. Bring them up. Hold them here. Bring them up. Hold them. Push them down. All right. Switch hands. Okay, so we find our wrists end range. I'm just going to make a few reps. Extending those fingers. Yeah, and that should start to feel like it's really working those muscles on the top. Yeah, so see if you can find that end range of your, a little bit more forward. Yeah, there you go. There you go. So you really want to find the end range of your wrist, that you can't make this gap or this angle even smaller. That's where you stop, or that's where this exercise begins. Okay, so we bring it up. Help it with your other hand. Hold it here. And try to push it down, but resist it. Ooh, that's really hard, huh? Number 2, hold it up. Good. Number 3, hold it up. Don't let yourself win. Okay. Number 4. The last one. Number 5. Okay. Shake that off. So this was really focused on those finger extensors. Now we're going to do the last exercise, and we're going to focus that on the wrist extensors. So we're going to get into this position. I'll show you first, so I'll show you from the side so it shows a little easier. So I'm going to find my end range, and then from here I'm going to try to shorten the muscles, or I'm going to contract the muscles there. So if I move backwards, that my wrist stays in that angle. So I'm really actively pulling that off. Does that make sense? Yeah, there you go. So keep the elbow fully locked. So you're going to find the end range. Contract everything, so pull your wrist up. And then lean backwards. And relax again. Okay, we're going to contract. And then the goal is to not have a change in angle as you go. And that's really hard to do, but that's what we're trying to do. Okay, 4 more reps. 3 more reps. 2 more reps. Okay, go all the way forward as far as you can. And the last one. Okay, good. So it always feels like your wrists are going to fall off now. I have the same, no worries, I have the same. So shake that off. Yeah, these are always one of those exercises, or the type of exercise where you go like, how is this good? It doesn't feel like I'm contracting much. It just feels like it's jamming and it's painful and it's. But if you do this a couple times in a week, and you don't have to do them as rigorously, you can also just do 1 round. It will really make a huge difference in the amount of tightness you feel in your forearms. Okay, so that soreness should have left already a little bit. So come and sit again. You remember the exercise we started off with? So now it just feels tired. But it should feel like there's more space, there's more awareness. That whenever you go to ulnar or radial deviation, it doesn't feel as jittery as it did before. Okay, switch hands. Does that feel different now compared to before we did all these exercises?